So I have no financial interest apart from a great NHS pension. And so it's farewell. But before you all go home, let's just stop and think. Because we're all fantastic reflectors, so let's just reflect on what was great at this conference. Hopefully something was. What makes great lives, and what will you do next? How will you have a great future? Because this is all coming together now. So how was it for you? At the start of the conference, I said what you really should be looking at this conference is what does great general practice look like? And you should be connecting with people near you and those who have similar interests elsewhere. And you should find out and know how the RCGP can help you and how you can help the RCGP. And importantly, you should have fun every day. And is there anything else? Well, let's just go through those briefly. I'm just going to touch on a few things. What does great look like? Well, Roy Lilly challenged us to be family doctors in a modern way, because what we've got is slipping away. And as David Haslam says, maybe it's as simple as decluttering the consultation by learning to shut up, listen, care, and then know something. So we need to be careful, to really identify what great general practice is. And maybe it's a lot simpler than we think. And then we have to make connections with people who live and work in our area. And my colleagues in the middle there from Hawfield Health Centre, we've got Alison and Liz and Holly are all there. And they're on Channel 5 every night at 8 o'clock in Doctors Behind Closed Door, the 5th series. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be on daytime TV forever. So it's good to meet all the other people, and there's a whole batch of them from Bristol in the middle there. And there's also a huge number of people from all over the world here. The Japanese, Myanmar, Qatar, Nigeria, lots of countries. And it's really great to hear from you all and talk to you all and learn a little bit more about you and how your systems work, because actually we learn as much from you as you ever learn from us. And then the next question is, understand how the RCGP can help you and how you can help the RCGP. I certainly hope that you feel that the RCGP is an important part of making your career a great career. And the important thing is to have fun every day. I have no problem with this myself. And if you read the fantastic book called Aging Well, it's a longitudinal study of people over the course of their lives, and they found out there are two important things that you really have to do. If you want to be really happy when you're old, there are two important things you have to do for your life. One is avoid excess alcohol and drugs. And the other one, which you have to start today, is to be happy when you're young. If you're happy when you're young, you can be happy when you're old. And then the final thing, out there in this audience at the moment, some of you are having a birthday, and you're thinking, what on earth am I doing in this room today? Well, actually, Helen Stokes-Lampard, our chair, happy birthday. Check out her shoes. So just remind ourselves what we're actually trying to achieve in healthcare. Well, the US Institute for Healthcare Improvement says it's the triple aim: enhance patient experience, improve population health, and reduce costs. And we're all fairly familiar with that in one way or another. But also in the US, this is not a UK-based thing. They've worked out that actually you have to improve the work life of healthcare providers. Otherwise, you've got no chance with the triple aim. We have to have a healthy workforce. And that's been a real theme in our conference. How are we looking after ourselves so we can do our job well? Because if we don't look after ourselves, then our patients have got no chance. So I'm going to talk about great lives, really by cycling and repeating, some old advice from the great lives of others. So warning, as always, these are my personal views. This is not part of any official college policy. I'm not allowed to make college policy. I'm not allowed to write checks. I'm not allowed to do anything exciting. So this is just a reminder. I'm not going to go through this, but clearly there is a crisis. We're in a perfect storm, and this is not an inclusive list. There's lots of things going wrong at the moment, which we're all very aware of, but I'm not going to dwell on it. I just want you to make you aware that we are aware, and we're not in some sort of fool's paradise. So whilst all this is going on, it can really seem that the politicians in the NHS are like dogs watching TV. They can see it, but they just don't get it. And with no disrespect to Jeremy Hunt, he doesn't really understand continuity of care at all. So whilst the politicians are doing what they're doing, what should politicians get? They really need to get that the NHS is in peril, and general practice is being held up by a barely visible thread of optimism at the moment, and that without NHS, general practice, the NHS will possibly collapse. That's what they've got to get, and they're not getting it, and they're not getting it fast enough. So, Churchill said, if going through hell, keep going. But the solution is not keeping going and working harder or smarter. We've been doing that for too long already. So we really need to know where you are now, where you're going to, and how to get there. And that's one of the reasons why we come to the conferences like this, to find out how we can get through this and get ourselves sorted out. So let's just remind ourselves what we're really trying to achieve. It's the quadruple aim: improve the work life of healthcare providers, including clinicians and staff, and really, and I mean this, put the prestige and swagger back into general practice. If we're having a great time, we'll do our job well. But conferences aren't new. They're as old as the Ark, really. So people come to conferences for support, knowledge, and inspiration. And our first annual conference was 10 years ago in Edinburgh, and this is what we were talking about at the time, just to remind you: the new RCGP exam, the new GP curriculum, the new revalidation, and the college had issued the Future Direction of General Practice, a roadmap which did promote federated models of general practice, but did not foresee the workforce crisis. But that's exactly when we should have been doing something about it. So we're not, we don't have crystal balls. There's lots of unforeseen consequences that we have to be aware of and be thinking about more at the moment. So we'll come on to that in a moment. So we come to conferences and we want to take home messages because we need to know what we need to do. And we're all really trying hard and we all want to make a difference. But, we have got limited capacities. And we all know from previous conferences we have all these great intentions. And you go back and then life takes over again. So I'm going to give you some Old Norse advice that might help. This dates from the late 8th century to the late 11th century, and this is the Viking Age, which lasts for 300 years. And quite a lot of you will have, when you do your DNA, you'll find out you're part Viking. The Vikings got all around Europe and across the Atlantic to North America. And they were fantastic at boat building. If you've never seen these boats, they are just absolutely the most beautiful objects that you can virtually see out there. They were really fantastic at boats. They weren't very good at books, though. They had an oral tradition. They passed everything down by mouth. And so the Codex Regius, which is, was discovered in Iceland, but it's of Norwegian origin, wrote down 200 to 300 years later a lot of these Old Norse oral traditions. And the reason why it was difficult, because Old Norse is a runic languages, and actually words were really hard to write. We take it for granted now, but actually it was very difficult to put down on paper what your words were when you were writing in the runic tradition with Old Norse. And if you look at it now, it can seem very compressed and very cryptic, and probably what we're reading doesn't resemble what they were saying in their Norse oral tradition. So the Havamal is 164 verses from the Codex Regius, and it's the sayings of the High One. This is me. It's a guide to a good life and a good future. And this was translated by a Norwegian, Britt Holmsen, who is in fact my mother-in-law. When she was a child in Norway, she learnt the Havamal in modern Norwegian. But later on in her life, back in the 1980s, when there was no internet, no PCs, and cutting meant using scissors and pasting meant using glue, as her winter work, she decided to translate the Havamal from Old Norse into English, because she thought, if you're learning this stuff, there must be a reason why people learn all these verses to pass it on to the next generation. So Britt died last year, And when somebody dies, you're going through all their things and finding things and rediscovering things. And one of the things we rediscovered was her translation of the Havamal. And I thought, gosh, this is really worth sharing with you lot. So this is what I'm going to do. And this is verse 164 for all you old Norse scholars. You'll laugh at this. Just checking, thank God, there's no old Norse scholars in the room, thank goodness. I can make this up from now on. But the Havamal and other Norse wisdom has been condensed into the Viking law, and this is what I'm going to share with you for the next few minutes. The 10 laws which I want you to take away, which will enhance your life over the next year. So let's start. Think positively. Oh no, before I get to that one, you might think Viking advice has no relevance in the modern world, but this, if you went to the conference last night, you can see this is spot-on advice. Spot on. And actually, the next verse is on eating, and this is so direct and so obvious to say when we've got an epidemic of obesity. There were not very many fat Vikings, I think. So, think positively. So what we have to do, and we've been hearing about it at this conference, the hospital illness-based model is failing and changing, and that's what our problem is at the moment. We're in this period of change. We're moving from that failing model to the one which is person and health-based, and it's difficult moving. But we have to change our mentality, from those of us who keep saying and repeating it, you can hear it almost on a daily basis, I'm just a GP, to being proud to be the expert medical generalists that we are. The person and health specialists who understand the importance of everything that affects the patients. I heard a good expression for it, the sense makers. The knowledge is out there now, but we have to make sense of it for our patients. While I'm talking about thinking positively, I just have to make just a note about social media. Social media is great, but just join the social media groups where you can feel supported and you can learn. Leave those ones where you are afraid to politely post what you think. If you've had any experience of social media, you'll know what I mean. Don't surround yourself with misery. So this is exactly what the Vikings sort of said. Always remember, death is inevitable, but misery is optional. So the next one is see possibilities. I was at a lecture a couple of weeks ago, and the lecturer was saying the most difficult thing in the NHS is persuading people that it's possible. This is what Tim Smits was doing yesterday, really saying, actually, it's possible. Yes, you can do this. But it's difficult if you're doing it by yourself, and that's why you have to use the RCGP and our faculty. People like you who will give you a boost will say, yes, you'll probably fail, but have a go anyway. And so you do need support. And if there's something out there that you feel that the college isn't doing, that should be doing, then let us know. It's your college. Number 3 is create winners. So we have the AITs, we have membership, we then have the first 5, and then there's a 35-year gap until you retire. So fellowship should be filling that gap, but it isn't. So we're going to change the rules for our fellowship. We're going to keep the very high standards, but making it cheaper, very important, cheaper, and easier to apply. The standard is not so much some sort of undefined, unachievable excellence, but the achievable, I am more than good enough, which is what most of us are. So please nominate yourself or others for fellowship. The process is online via the website, and actually it's fairly easy. Thinking about it is difficult, doing it is actually fairly easy. Currently, only 14% of our eligible members are fellows, and they're all mostly men. So we want 50% of our eligible membership to be fellows in 10 years' time. So I know from practical experience reading these things, if you document what you've done in your careers, it will make you feel much more positive about your career. You will have done far more than you realize that you've done. It's really worthwhile doing it and documenting it and becoming a fellow. And we're going to try and open up fellowship after that to further career development so that you can become clinical advisors in the college or college representatives in the college to make it worthwhile being a fellow. The next one is you have to take responsibility for things. So we can't ignore what else is going on, which is that we have got climate change, we've got lots of problems going on. So we're launching at this conference this year's version of the Green Impact for Health Toolkit and Award. This is part of our green efforts that includes being a founder member of the UK Health Alliance on Climate Change. This toolkit is free, easy to use, and will improve your practice in lots of ways and actually save you money. It meets the needs of general practice, and you can find out more by looking on the website, and you can get through the whole system by using an email there and the password there. It's going to be on the next slide as well, or contacting pearlcostello@nus.org. I'll just show you the first couple of pages. So if you look at the Green Impact Toolkit, this is the first page, and it's made very easy. On the left, you can see there's bronze, silver, and gold standards. As you'd expect, they get harder as they go on. But even the bronze, we start off, and we have the baby steps, which you can do straight away, and then a little bit more you can plan for later on this winter and some more next spring. And if we drill down again into the bronze ones, it's very easy. At the beginning, it tells you what the criteria is, then it tells you why it's important, then it also tells you how to do it, and you can score points and things like that. You're not expected to sort of complete the whole thing, but it's a way of being able to say, it answers the question, not what should I be doing, and what can I do? It's answering both those questions. It shows you what you should do and what you can do, and it actually will make save your practice money and actually make your team feel better about the whole concept of sustainability. The next one is be brave, be a Viking. Barbara Starfield showed improved population health outcomes are associated with larger, stronger, and more integrated primary care systems. And her 4 C's, the essential 4 C's of primary care, was first contact access, continuity, comprehensiveness, and care coordination. And a bit like Roy Lilly was saying yesterday, this is slipping away. Actually, we're in danger of throwing the baby out with the bathwater with some of these. Before long, unless we're careful, we won't be first contact, we won't have continuity, we won't have comprehensiveness, and we won't have care coordination. So be brave. Have and be a personal general practitioner. Have you personally got a named GP who is your GP? If you haven't, why not? And if you haven't got one, why would you expect your patients to have one? This is crazy. If you're healthy now, make sure you've got the best GP in the world, because when you're ill, that's when you need them. So you really need to have a great GP now. People say, oh, well, it's too difficult to have a personal, continuity of care these days and have it be a personal GP. It's not. With job shares, you just share a list. It's very easy to do. You're not talking about having 100% continuity. You're talking about having the 50 to 60% continuity where it's important with the patient over many, many years. And being a personal GP actually makes your life easier because you're accountable to individual patients, but it reduces your responsibility to everybody else. When we personalised ILS and I practice, I thought I had 13,000 ill patients. Well, when we personalised them, I actually had about 1,500 patients, and of those, 1,300 were completely well. So, and it makes general practice a much more human and rewarding relationship. So have a personal GP. Improve continuity. It can be done. It will make your life much better. So be brave. So number 6 is there's always one of these things which doesn't really neatly fit into the category you're trying to get it into. So this is this one. So I apologize for this. Fight against jealousy and laziness. This is trying to hammer the square peg into a round hole. So Barbara Starfield also said that one of the C's is better care coordination, and we're losing that as well. But you're in luck. The college has developed this new collaborative care and support planning process, which actually is pretty easy to use and actually will provide much better care coordination for your patients. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out and read this and do it on all your patients immediately, but try it on one patient a week. Get your worst patient, try it on your worst patient, just one patient, and see if it makes a difference. And I guarantee it will. And if you do it, the whole thing about when you've had a good day at work, when you've looked after your patients well, it brings the joy and sparkle back into general practice, and that's what we want. Okay, so we're on number 7. So this is to say that really we have to value education and research a lot better. And we have to remember that a lot of what we do is not based on high-quality research. Only 18% of what we do is based on patient-orientated evidence. So we need better evidence. And the way we're going to get better evidence in primary care is you helping people do that, asking the questions, or if other people are asking questions, you helping to answer them. The other aspect about this is careers in general practice. We've heard earlier about the Val Wass report last year, looking how we can support medical students choosing general practice. But there are lots of things for other people to do there. But one of the problems we have is ourselves, because if medical students come out into our practices and come back from practices saying this is what they've observed in general practice, they're never going to choose general practice as a career. So we have to change that. We mustn't let this be happening. We have to demonstrate that we are doing a great job, and they will pick up how we feel about our job, and they will want to be like us. Number 8, have fun every day. You can work, look after children, or keep the house clean, but you really can't do all three. It's just not possible. This is my wife's quote. So remember, nothing is impossible as long as you don't have to do it by yourself. Get help. Please get help. Acknowledge that you need help. We all need help. We're going forward together. So isn't it funny how day by day nothing ever changes much, but when you look back everything is different. So even though you think nothing is changing, it is changing, and what you do today will change tomorrow. One of my wise partners at the beginning of my career said, it doesn't matter how long something takes as long as you start. So number 9, give praise. Thank you all. None of this would have been possible without you, our delegates, for coming, our organisers, contributors, speakers, our sponsors and exhibitors, and the venue and its staff. It's been a great conference. I've really enjoyed it. And remember, nothing is impossible as long as you don't have to take all the credit yourself. So give praise to others. The power of thank you is tremendous. Number 9, looking forward. Just remember, general practice remains very strong, and GPs remain the most trusted professionals in society. We are the most trusted professionals. Our Achilles heel is our ability to absorb large amounts of works with insufficient NHS support. That's our problem. We do what we do too well for too little. So, what's to be done? Well, it's down to you. It's your choice. You know, you're the only people that can make any difference to all this. You can't change other people. All you can change is yourself. And remember, if you want to be happy in your old age, start now. So this is almost at the end now. Have a safe trip home. That verse 164, which you seem to be struggling with in Old Norse, I'll now translate to you. This is the final verse. So now, how to behave. Is spoken from the great hall, useful to good sons, useless to troll sons. Hail to the scold, hail to he who knew. Enjoy what you have learned, hail to the listeners. Thank you. Thank you.